But all the
It's
same,
very excellent right now. Pick up penye uko usitoke.
thank you. I'll hold on to there. So, for me, I just wanted to mention a few things, and maybe not just to take you back a little bit, but when you are discussing about the various ills of what is happening in our country, I'll start with the most recent one that you've mentioned, the Kenyatta National Hospital. Um, if we are concerned about the security at the hospital, then the question people should be asking is, what are the protocols placed in that hospital? Um, there should be data, or there should be an analysis of, based on when this first patient was killed a few months ago, then what did the hospital do to sort of negate any security risk? Did they really look at their CCTV system? Did they change their security personnel? Did they do a rotation of the security personnel? Did they retrain the security personnel? A whole myriad of things that should have been looked into. However, saying that, I think from my point of view, nothing was done, and hence why we see all this long-winded statement that has no grounding, or no, you know, format on what is going on. They just, I think it's the standard PR exercise for them, for any government agency to say, oh, we are complying with the DCI. Yet we know that it is in public realm that these Subaru boys who keep roaming around the streets of Nairobi in plateless cars are actually DCI people. So there's a level of trust issues around the country, and unfortunately to say, people are not afraid anymore of criminals, but people are afraid of government institutions and government workers, because it seems that in this country, government is the biggest threat to anyone's freedom, or anyone being able to access any service at whatever point in time. And that's the sad reality. So when we ask specifically to do with our healthcare system, look at SHA. It's not working. Now, patients are dying in public hospital. What next? Doctors are underpaid. What next? Vaccines are not being paid for by government. Young children are not even getting proper dosages as expected. So, I mean, I think for me, whatever is happening at Kenyatta National Hospital, it's just a snippet into the very big quagmire of what we call a failing regime. Um, if it is not failed by any person who wants to think that it might not have failed, these are the reasons why we say it has failed. Because some people might think, oh no, we are being too unfair to the regime. But in actual sense, education is on its knees, healthcare is on its knees. Those are the two fundamental pillars of a country's and the fabric of society. And finally, you put in security, and what do you have? We would be no different than Congo, for example, unfortunately to say, simply because, much as we don't want to use the example, we don't have functioning systems. The government can't give you answers when things go wrong. Public institutions can't give you answers when things go wrong. And now this government is very famous for giving us the famous name, like I always told you. When we were young, we used to be told by our parents, when something goes wrong in the house, there's always one new person who lives in that house called Sijui. That is what our government is starting to show us. There's a new person in this government who is called Department Sijui. So they don't know. They have no idea. Everyone looks like, they're children learning to walk for the first time. So they're grappling to understand what's going on. But fundamentally is, if they're not going to do anything, they have a very simple solution. Every single person in this institution, starting with Kenyatta National Hospital, change the security company if it's a contracted supplier. Change the CCTV system. And for crying out loud, just change the management of Kenyatta National Hospital at very serious odds, so that we don't start having these conversations after we have 50 or 60 people who are dying in the same hospital. Then we are still asking, we don't know. Hatujui ni nani. So over back to you, Obeds. Is just trying to be brief, but those are my honest views. Thank you.
Thank you, 254. I think I love that argument. The thing that government didn't know who was abducting Kenyan. Government did know who brought goons. Government was also asking, like we are asking, who is doing what is going on. They have the monopoly of power, of violence. They have investigative authorities or people who are supposed to do that, but they can't find out and they ask questions just like us. The irony. Betty, what's your conversation? What's your take on this? And in whose hands are we safe as a people? Betty, if you can hear us, unmute and speak. She seems to be far from her microphone. Paul,
Betty,
please.
can you read us?
Yes, Paul, please make your contribution. Paul Malaya.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
Paul.
sure. A minute, I'm coming. Yeah, sure.
Betty will allow Paul to speak and we come back to you after Grace.
Yeah, so kind of what I think is we like I think we have to kind of change the kind of a thought process of how we already know that the truth is we already know we have a rogue government. That is a fundamental truth. So once we know that, I don't think I mean you should expect anything better. I mean, you know, everything that's happening right now, it's worse. It doesn't mean it's wrong to discuss about it or to basically when we just in a sense witnessing or we're going through various cases that are happening. But already when you have a rogue government, when you have a government that does not care, you have an evil government, what else is remaining? Are people going to perish? People are going to going through like people are going to go through so many hardship and things like that. So that's what we know. Obviously, we can how I think is our collective unity is the only thing that holds because without the collective unity, then we are almost like led astray or we are almost like without power. But as long as you're united, it doesn't matter how your enemy is. Whenever you have a united front, and obviously you speak out in a united front whereby it's a collective of the whole community, like we have right now. For example, like even look at the Gen Zs, like how they went about it. It was a collective unity. So that collective unity now it it kind of like I think that's the reason why I like how everything is going. It's simply it's very organic, and that's the best way of disruption because the enemy is used to knowing who to deal with a particular individual, things like that. But when you have an enemy, basically enemy cannot as much as we're here discussing and we're open, that's the beautiful thing, we're open, we discuss about these things, these guys listen and everything, but at the end of the day they've already failed because this is not something that is, you know, like an idea which has come in right mind and with things which are happening, the awakening which is there right now. No matter what you do, you might get rid of one person, but that spirit lives on. You cannot eliminate, like if you think you can eliminate one person or three people, you think like nothing's going to change. Change is inevitable, basically, whether they like it or not. They are the reason why all these things are happening and people are going through all these inspirations because they know their time is up. So these are the last fight, and we have to be resolving. We have to have that mindset, knowing that we've already won the battle. It's just a matter we're just living it. We're living in it as we go forward. But the battle's already been won. That's what I believe, and that's what I truly believe. So as long as we get to a mindset of positive thinking, like for example, things are happening very naturally. Like for example, like you the leaders are coming forth, and it's not like for the fact that we even have a Maraga, it doesn't mean we're putting all our faith and hope in him. Maraga did not put himself out there. He came from the people's choice. People looked and people talked and people thought, okay, fine, who do we see that is right for the nation? And he just came, people chose him before even he came out. He didn't, the fact that he's gone and out there and said, that means he's met people and people have spoken to him. So it's a community
So,
choice.
so Paul, just to try and rein you in on what we're trying to look at. So, is it your opinion that Maraga is then the safer bet, or is the one that we consider safe? But not going into politics, because I think the point we're looking at is there are so many happenings going on. What can we look at, and how do we deal and solve that problem in the immediate term? Because we also have a responsibility, other than voting and changing the political class. What else can be done? Our institutions, are they doing what they're supposed to do? And an example we point into is the Kenyatta issue. It's been long on, and how do we handle such issues? Or do you think it's a government failure generally? Why do we place this? What's the safety? Is there any?
So that's what I'm saying. As in, everything in life stands or falls on leadership. The moment you have a terrible leadership, be it in your homestead, things will not go well. So all these things are because of the leadership Kenya's had for the past 60 years. We've had terrible leadership. So the thing is, that's what I'm saying. Us coming together collectively, for example, like you saw how the youth who are charged with terrorism and everything, and then you had institutions which care, like LSK went out there and spoke, and even Maraga came out and spoke. There's the collective unity, the collective of a society coming to speak about these issues do help. For example, people volunteered to pay money for the guys to be released. The same things in hospitals. We need to think about an alternative system which is operating, and comes from like for this conversation happening. There can be a fund that helps, like the same way you have SHA and everything. Nothing stops people as a community to do their own thing. Because at the end of the day, what you should realize is, like, you have a failed state. That once you get that into your head, then obviously there's alternatives. Alternatives is community-led initiatives, which, as I say, they're happening, and they're happening very organically. Obviously, as we bring these cases to the table, or you have these issues, then we think of solutions. Solutions always come from the community, because this is a collective thing. Because we obviously know the people who the community per se chose to lead, they're not leading. Yeah, they're destroying, they're killing. And that's what's happening, and stealing. So what is in everything else, and every institution has been kind of. Kenyatta the other day was trying to be sold. Someone was trying to get Kenyatta to own it, an individual, and those are the top guys in Kenya. So all these cases are happening, and obviously, as you say, obviously there are things which are basic diligence, like security and everything. Those things are there. But if you're dealing with a failed state, you think it'll still not happen. We can go and talk about it, but they will still do the same thing. Like you see, whatever happens. That's what I say. Don't listen to what these guys are saying. Oh, DCI has said this and this. What are the actions? You will know them by their fruits. What are the fruits that they're showing you? It's quite evident. That's my take.
Thank you so much, Paul. And what I hear is that the sense of the amorphous nature of lack of specific people the government can deal with is healthy for us and useful, because then we're able to work around a lot of issues, which is a positive thing. But at the same time, you realize that we have a responsibility, that we must keep these guys accountable in terms of what they're doing. That's what I'm hearing. We had Grace. Grace, I'll have you, then I go back to Betty and Jerry, because she wasn't able to speak when she was supposed to. So, Grace, let's hear what's your take on the conversation.
Hello, Ovid. Hi, Mizani. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. And
Very loud.
okay, thank you. And you'll forgive me. For me, I will tend to clarify something and link up the education issue, not link up the KNH, since all this, towards the end of the summation, we will all see that this is a leadership issue. And if there's one thing we'll have to say, that when it comes to education, yes, that's where I play around, or that's where I work. And one among the things we'll say is that at the end of the day, most of our systems, Africa as a whole, but now let's focus on Kenya, we are using borrowed systems, right? Where we are running systems that we are not the ones who designed it. The curriculums, we inherited them. The structures are borrowed, and then we benchmark from, we are benchmarking for foreign interest rather than for the local needs. So now it becomes a bit hard when we even try to localize like what we are doing right now, the CBE, trying to localize, but in real sense, the machinery is largely foreign. And now, when we have that, that's where we'll have such a report where our learners are not able to sit in classes that reflect the realities, and we as teachers, we also don't have the tools to really train. And assessment now becomes more for survival than for growth. Now, when you talk about the different, there's a lady who came in and was asking, like capitation and the different bodies that we have. One, will have to understand that most of our government systems are more regulators than implementers. So now they'll be passing down policies, they'll be auditing, announcing results, but more often than not, they don't have the infrastructure or the training, and they can't really build systems that actually serve the community, the child, or even that educator who's supposed to come and educate. So now you'll find the whole issue becomes, now it's going to be down to the implementers who are on the ground, and they are the grassroots. So now this is where I'm saying it's not a policy issue, it's a leadership issue, because at the end of the day, it's whoever who sits at the office. And I think there's a space where we were looking at here with Mizani. You were looking at the leaders and the people who are sitting in office. So now, is it do they have the vision? Do they have the courage? And are they able to execute? Are they able to listen and look at what is actually happening on the ground? For us to really look at education, and the reforms that are needed, so that we can stop turning education into a political tool. Because right now I'm seeing education is being turned into a political tool. So with the question that you're asking, or we're asking today, in whose hands are we safe? For me, I'm looking at it. It's not that so much we're pointing fingers, is the demand for better. Are we going to get leaders who are accountable? We're going to protect not only the future of our children, but also not just turn everything into a slogan or into a hashtag, and build systems that actually work for us. Especially when it comes to education, somebody who will understand that education is not charity, it's a right. And it's not just an assessment for us to go and, yeah, I finished Form 4 or I finished university, but it's also a liberation tool, where the ministries, KICD, TSC, also understand that it's a long-term thing. Now, there's a lady who came and she was asking about capitation and all that. And the one thing I'll tell you, again, falling under leadership, by the time capitation is being sent, I will mention that when we were rolling out as a country free primary education, I was working at the ministry and we were doing data entry. And when you're doing data entry at that point, we were just given a whole book, and this is data that has been gathered from the grassroots. So now you'll find it's also influenced at the grassroots. We were being given volumes of books, and the only thing we have is a school name, a school code, and the population. Now, once that is fed into the system, now that's how the schools are going to get capitation. So now you'll find TSC cannot now come and say this is a person who received. No, no, no. It's based out of data. And now this will also go into the leadership in terms of when we are collecting that data, the person who's at the grassroots level, are they able to self-govern? Are they having that? It's not just for me, but it's for everyone. It's for the betterment of whoever it is we are serving. So again, leadership will be the one place where when we get leadership right, and not just go for a slogan or go for popularity, but and also not go for influence, because I'm also seeing that is a whole, where we are looking at the influence. If we are able to get leadership right, I am hoping, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that we are going to get all these issues sorted out, starting from education, security, health, and all that. And with that, allow me to sum it at that of it.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I'm going to leverage especially on that because education is your forte. And at the same time, it also ties into a lot of other issues, because if education is not right, health is not working, there's lots of problems. And as you put it correctly, it's not a policy problem. It's really about implementation. And that's the concern. And that really is scary to think that there are people who are tasked to do what they're supposed to, they can't deliver. Let me allow Betty Njeri to make her contribution. Marab will come back to you eventually. Let me hear what Betty has to say. Then we get to hear from Malia and Josephine. Then I get you to speak. So, Betty, your turn to make a contribution. In whose hands are we safe? And Redemptor, nice to see you. Karibu sana. Betty has dropped again. I'm worried. So, Malia, I'll give you an opportunity to make your contribution. What's your take on the conversation?
I guess let's move to Josephine because of time.
To hear from Josephine. Josephine, what's your take on the conversation?
Obeds, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? All right, looks like we can't have communication between myself and Obeds, but the rest can. Malia, if you can hear me, kindly, it is your time to submit. Okay, Josephine, if you can hear me, kindly pick up the mic.
Thank you, Obed, and thank you, Mizani, for hosting us. And also thank you to everyone, all the speakers. We really appreciate you. You are the reason as to why we are here, because of our country, because one person, even if they do us the space and we are not there, then, and we have speakers, we don't have listeners, again, we are not going anywhere. But once we are here, all of us, both the speakers, the hosters, and also the co-host, and also the listeners, then we are good to go. Oh, yeah. We are good to go. Can you hear me?
Josephine, we can hear you. Proceed. 4 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you very much. And I would wish to say the following. I want to echo somebody who has just talked about Justice Maranga, the Emeritus Justice Maranga, as the right person, and maybe we are a little bit safer on his hands. And if you give me just an opportunity, I can take you through some of the things personally I would actually appreciate him being in our country, and why I feel he can do better without becoming a politician, or even without encouraging people
maybe
about
if
it.
you just for us to enable you move forward, Josephine, we are currently handling the case from Kenyatta National Hospital, and if you can be able to intertwine it with education among others. But for now, it's specifically on the KNH situation, whereby there's a patient whose throat was slit, and looks like we are not safe in hospitals. We are not safe with police officers. We are neither safe on the streets because there's a shoot to kill or shoot to disable order from the president. And last but not least, we are not even safe in our own homes because if you stay watching TV, you'll be shot. So that is our area of coverage tonight, Josephine. If you can focus on KNH, it would be great.
Thank you very much for that correction. However, we are also not safe even in the judiciary. So you are forgetting that. Even in the judiciary, we are not safe.
Ongeza. In whose hands are we safe, Josephine? Tell us.
Yes. And one thing I want to say is that there's no way, personally, I'm working in a hospital setup. So there's no way a person will just be slain in the ward and we are not able to tell who did it. That's a total lie. So, fellow Kenyans, first and foremost, when Kenyatta Hospital administration tries to tell us somebody has just been actually slain in the ward and nobody knows how it happened, for me, I don't buy that. They know it, they know how it did happen, and somebody somewhere is responsible. And the hospital administration is supposed to be held accountable to account, because I cannot imagine, before even somebody gets to the ward, there are so many people around who can see, and there are so many stations in the hospital whereby everybody can see who is coming and who is doing what where. So when somebody just wakes up and tells us that somebody has been killed in the hospital and they are not able to say who did it, then that means actually the entire management of the hospital is supposed to be sacked and go home. Not only go home, actually we take them to court and we lock them up in the prison. Because once you are in the hospital, you are always supposed to be very, very safe and secure. I remember there was an instance where in our hospital, guys came chasing a man whom they wanted to cut him into pieces. But once he got into our offices immediately, actually we hit the guy and then we confronted this man and he wanted to know, what did you want? What has happened? And we said, actually, the guy had jumped the wall. After they had left, now it's when we wanted to know from this victim what was really happening. And we handed this boy to the police custody so that the police can be responsible. So that's what I'm trying to say. That's how safe an hospital can be. Now, when you tell me someone has been killed in the world and nobody's responsible, nobody knows what happened, that's a lie. And somebody, we couldn't be having murderers amongst the administration or the officers who are working, and they are still being covered by the administration. Fellow Kenyans, we need to be told the truth, and we are not safe if that is the situation. Let Kenyatta Hospital tell us what's really happening to the hospital. And if that's not the case, let people pack and go. Why should we retain people who are murderers? Because in the hospital, everybody is supposed to be safe and secure. The other thing is that I think I saw a young man who was addressing the president and was asking very many questions to the president the other day. And I was just asking myself, is he really listening? Because he's taking it like a joke. This young man was asking very varied questions. And he was telling the president this, which actually I want to say echo to that boy because he was so firm. And I remember somebody was coming to take the mic from him. And he told that lady, kindly keep off. This is my time to speak to the president. And I have to address the president. And that's the boldness we want to have. Wherever you are confronting something which is not right, no matter whoever is doing it, we should confront it with boldness, and that's how we can save our country and protect our country from actually falling to whatever scenarios we are falling into. Not pretending that we are safe, and then when the person comes, we cannot address that person. Fellow Kenyans, personally, I strongly feel that we need a true leader who is responsible, because right now, even as we are talking, why I'm saying that the judiciary is also not for us. You've seen people being brought to the courts and they are charged with terrorism, yet we have our Kenyan constitution which defines very well who is a terrorist. And they are given so very high penalties such that they cannot even afford to pay for them so that they can be free and appear to court, avail themselves in court. Now, what does that mean to us? That means we have several judges who are well known for working for the government to destroy us and to destroy our nation. And I want to pass the same message back to them. The other day, yesterday I read a letter from the Chief Justice trying to tell us he's protecting his judges. The truth is, amongst the judges that the Chief Justice is protecting, she needs to know that we have judges who are working for the government and you are working to terrorize Kenyans by giving exorbitant votes to them so that we get scared, because once we go to the streets, we'll be actually charged with terrorism and we are no longer safe. Actually, first and foremost, even the judge is supposed to question, why are you presenting this as a terrorism? Because they are supposed to protect the constitution, which they are not doing. They are out there to work for the government and to please their master. The truth is, I think we need to keep on shouting it out clearly and putting it clear to everyone so that they can know that whatever is happening, we can see and we can watch. Personally, I witnessed a judge saying that if you are from the AG, you should be seeing me and letting me know that you are appearing before me before the case starts. What does that mean? A judge is supposed to be neutral, so he has already or she has already taken sides. So the person who is pursuing that matter may never get justice. Fellow Kenyans, we have to stand firm and look forward to have a leader who will protect our constitution, who who will clean our judicial system and make sure that actually every Kenyan is protected by the law and by the constitution as per the constitution. Fellow Kenyans, thank you very much for listening to me. Let's keep on pressing and knowing that in the hospital is the right place where you're supposed to be and you're supposed to be protected. Let no one tell you that that's a lie. Let's stand firm and keep on speaking. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is Josephine. And you say, let's stand firm. Obviously, I hope you can be able to hear us now. You seem to have lost us a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I've survived. I've come back. I don't know. I just
Thank you very much. So I would love for us to progress the talk. We've looked at the issue of the hospital. And I think, again, we cannot have all the time to really go into extreme details because, again, this is a case that is still under investigation. But number one, that we must be able to agree is Kenyatta Hospital has had several cases that are criminal-like, and they cannot pretend that they do not have or have not listened to several proposals on how to improve on the security of their facility. I think it's high time that some heads get rolling, Obeds, and if not, people have to take personal and institutional responsibility. It cannot be business as usual that 1 year later or so, somebody's, their throat is slit, and then it's another news item, and we move on to the next news item. So, Obeds, I'll allow you to take over as we welcome in the next speaker in the line.
No, actually, Eli, the concern is from 2015 and other periods, we are talking about almost 10 years. Nobody was ever prosecuted for such things. And I think it's important that the hospital, as you say, either institutional accountability or overhaul the whole, group of people who are responsible and have a new team, maybe. Would that change? Hopefully. But there is need for something to be done. So let me allow, at the last time I was trying to have Malia. I don't know if Malia has spoken. Malia, can you hear us? Malia cannot hear us. I had allowed Marabu Strokes to make his contribution. Marabu, so what's your take on the conversation? You needed to put something across.
Am I coming through?
Yes, I can hear you now.
So my issue was with education. The nearest tertiary institution near me is the UON. And I've been talking to comrades around me, and they're telling me that they are not going to allow for new admission into the UON because of their deplorable living conditions. So because the box is not conducive for living, the students, the comrades at the University of Nairobi have decided that they are not going to allow for first years to be admitted. This is very serious because they pay about 40K per semester for living quarters. And University of Nairobi, let's give them 10,000 comrades by 40K, and you see the number. It's a lot of money. So we have turned education into a business that it is a profit venture. And the saddest thing is that the people who are turning education into a business themselves benefited from boom during their years. Yet they do not want to allow these youngsters to get education. They have totally ensured that HELB is non-functional, where they say that people are no longer paying back to HELB. How can you pay back to HELB when you have no jobs? So education is being strangled right before our very own eyes. And the reason is because the youth can no longer be allowed to be educated. They want us to be semi-skilled so that we can go abroad and work for the Arabs in Saudi Arabia. They don't want professionals. They don't want scholars. They don't want intellectuals. So that is the situation of education. in Kenya. And it's not only Nairobi University, we've seen it in Moi University up in Eldoret. Egerton University is coming up. Kisii University is coming up. How is it that somebody found a system that was well off running and within 2 years has managed to turn a system which was by itself and turn it to a disabled system that can no longer sustain itself? Universities receive fees from students and capitation from government. This part of capitation is what has made the universities dilapidated. And if you look at the part of the capitation, is the bond program that was introduced by the UDA regime. And sometimes, Obedzilla, when we say leave things as they are, do not try to fix a system when it's not broken, what we're seeing in Shah. Don't try and fix a system when it's not broken. And when you say, in whose hands are we safe? I believe it is in the hands of the person who is going to take us back to Mwai Kibaki. Some people will say that Mwai Kibaki was not a good president, but I will remind you of his first term. Forget about his second term when Raila Odinga came and they had to make. Just look at his first term when a minister was really a minister, when police was really police. I believe that Kenyans are not living a dream out of oblivion. We have already seen a system that worked. We know a system that can truly serve the people. So sometimes when this person becomes so mad and tells us that he's not mad, yet we know he is, then we have to go back and ask him, can you just stop doing what you're doing and let us go back to where we were so that we can trace where we're going? Otherwise, in the next few days, I would urge you to join our brethren and sistrins, comrades of Nairobi University as they go and change their plight. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Marabu Stock. I choose to correct you. We brag and say the University of Nairobi. There's always that persistence on the. It's important. I saw Anthony was up here. He stopped. Don't seem to have anybody on speaker mode except for me and Eli. And Josephine. But generally, the argument and what we're trying to front is, especially when you look at, we talk about Kenyatta Hospital, but at the same time, there are other issues that we are looking at. There is a sense of police brutality that's happening on the streets, and it's happening in the police cells. Some places where you go, you need security, and then you cannot be guaranteed. We see Kenyatta is a problem. Yes. I'd like to switch gears and look at police brutality and understand what is the origin of this problem partly, because when you look at it, the police system as was created previously was not supposed to serve the old, the people, but rather to protect the people who are what you call the colonialists. And when you look at what has been done, the reforms that they tried to implement, there's so many things that are not working. So ideally, the police system and its roots were colonial oppression, the sense of post-independence authoritarianism, which is continued by Kenyatta and doesn't seem to improve or change anything. Then there is institutional impunity. The police haven't reformed. They haven't changed for a long time. And so when you look at it, they were modeled to ensure that they protect the colonial system that was there, the state that was there, and that's what's happening today. Then there was a suppression. Remember Operation Anvil that happened in 1954.
Albert, are you still there?
That was
Okay, go ahead.
brutalized as a tool of control, and that has been the case since. You look at post-independence. If you look at post-independence, in 1963 to when Kenyatta is called by God, political assassinations are the order of the day. Kisumu massacre, when Kenyatta went to Kisumu, demonstrations that he did not like, and he did what he did. Moi era, back to party state, one party state, torture chambers in Nyayo House, Sabasaba protests in the 90s and how the police were used. Post-election violence in 2002 to 2013, Kibaki era, 1,100 people killed. Then we created IPOA. IPOA is supposed to investigate police officers, and IPOA is not well funded, and at the same time, it is by the police. How can the police investigate themselves? I don't know how that works. Post-election elections after the Supreme Court and all the elections in 2017, remember, there were bad, deadly crackdowns on people, and then remember, Baby Pendo, that one Redemptor likes speaking about, because she followed up on that, is killed, and her case has gone on for so long. A concern as well. Finance bill protests, you've seen how people have been killed. Albert Ojwang dies in jail, and so quite a number of things. So I'd like us to talk about the police, because the police seem to be a sore thumb that we're not able to run away from. And what we need to do, because I feel we should be able to go to the police and feel secure. Because if people want to kill you and you go to a police station, they should stop and not do anything to you. I think that's the safest haven, other than a church. So I would like to hear what you guys think, especially about the police, because I think it's important we talk about the police. And are we safe in the hands of the police? Anthony?
Thank you, Obeds and Eli and everyone. You know, I was somewhere and we were talking and I said, you know, we forget that we transitioned from the police force to the police service. And
in theory,
that was actually my next point. But the transition was not transferred to new training. So the name was said, but the training was never recalibrated to suit us. I was in I was on K24 and I met the NCIC chair. And that was because he came in when I was getting out. And that's one of the things I said. I when we spoke on the sidelines, I told him one of the things that I believe needs to change is we really need to move from a police force to a police service. And that will only happen if the training changes, but we only change the name. And I ended it at that because they were going into student, I was coming out. Here we are today, and in the Constitution, when you are told to picket, you actually just told to report, to inform the police. The police are supposed to ask, okay, where do you want to picket? You want to move from Haile Selassie to take a petition to parliament. Okay. The same way the police cordoned off roads when we have a high level meeting in Nairobi, they should do the same thing. And they tell people there will be protesters passing on these roads. What does that do? It protects the businesses so that people can continue with their businesses. And it gives the protesters a clean road to where they are going, saying what they are saying, and what they want to deliver or achieve is also achieved. You see, that kind of organization is how things happen. Number two, I think in the past 2 weeks, I've found I have been in a group of a few people, but extremely organized. And I found I started appreciating the effectiveness of, do I call it, I'm looking for a word, effective and silent campaign. So we started a campaign that we are not terrorists. I think you've seen it. Well, it's a fundraiser to get guys out of all the people who were arrested between June 25th and Sabasaba. That campaign alone has raised enough and is still raising money to pay for bonds and bails. LSK has come in with pro bono lawyers. We have the women rep of Kenyatta and other lawyers who are representing these people across this country. And you can see the results of that campaign. Because one of the things that has come out clearly is when you say terrorism as a charge, you know, the police forgets you can write the charges, but you also have to prove the charges. That was number one. Number two, you've arrested people. One of the things we realized that, man, we even had babies arrested on Sabasaba. Babies, people below age are in Naivasha prisons. Now, here you come and you say you've arrested Anthony. Crime, a robbery with violence. Sawa, you've arrested Anthony. What did he steal? A TV. Where is it? You see, so it's one thing to write the charge sheet. It's a totally different thing to prove the case. And I don't want to take you back, but it has come to show that you can actually weaponize the law. And for you to weaponize the law, you need the entire chain. So you need the police and you need the judiciary to make it effective. Another thing that has happened in that campaign is conversations, whereby people sit down and tell, when you set a bill at 300,000, is it reasonable? Did you look at the parameters? What is the cost? Why do we bail or why do we put bonds? It's a deterrent. Should it be used also as a sentence? Because when you give someone a bill that clearly you know they can't afford, you've sentenced them. You've sentenced them to stay in jail or to stay in, it's not jail, because they go to Naivasha, it's jail or in committee. So those are some of the things that are coming out during this campaign where we are getting people incarcerated. I've just seen LSK who are hosting a space. And those are the things that are being brought forward or coming to light or surfacing as weaponization of, can I say, the police force and in extension, the judiciary, because the two must work together. You know, the police has to do the arrest, the judiciary has to finish through by taking someone out or to either sell as they wait their hearings and all that. So if we really want those changes of how do Kenyans now go back to trusting the police, not only in the short term, but in the long term, is that the police force has to be totally done as a profession, whereby the police know, one, I do not need to obey a rogue order. And even if, after I don't obey that rogue order, I cannot be fired, nor can I be transferred to an area that people consider hostile. The moment the police becomes truly independent, now it will be able to serve people objectively. Number two is retraining them. Training the police to understand that, one, they need to understand the Constitution so that they can defend it. Number two, they also need to understand the law so that they can do or they can follow due process. Why do I say this? The first charge sheet that is written to a criminal is written by the police. Why? Why do I say this? The occurrence book. That is your first charge sheet. So if the police writes it in a bad way, they can actually determine your case going forward. And I'll give you an example. We had the young people who were arrested in Kisumu. The first thing that the OB read was arson. Okay? And when it went to the
I think, can you hear
the magistrate?
Anthony? Or
Can you hear me now?
Eli? Or anybody?
Obeds, we hear. We can hear Anthony.
So,
I
well,
hear
that case
Anthony. I hear you.
Hello, can you hear me? Kindly,
Yes,
I think my net has some issues.
Okay.
Can you hear me kindly?
It's not your time to speak on, Calvin. Just wait for a second.
Hello.
Oh Lord. Obeds, drop Calvin. If you
Deputy,
may.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can only hear you in the speakers.
Can you proceed, Anthony? I'll fix Bed's
Okay.
mic.
So that charge sheet, when it was first written, it read arson. Now, because they needed to be transferred to Nairobi, it was changed to terrorism. So, and then now you come to see the importance of how the record, when the police writes the OB, how that can be a sentence. If he writes it in the wrong way, they either punish the wrong person, okay, by subscribing the wrong crime. So the police really need to undergo a thorough course, understanding how the law works, understanding the constitution, understanding what it means to be a service, and removing the brutalization in their mind that these are people protesting. You can allow them to come so long they are not provoking you, and you can engage them in, it is your right to protest. So both of us are here courtesy of the Constitution. The Constitution allows you, the protester on that side, to protest. The same Constitution allows me, the police officer, to be on this end to protect you who's protesting and to protect the people who want to continue with their business. So can we work together? How do the police in Kenya work? You're protesting. I think there is a mark they put on the road. Ukipita hapa tear gas. That is a change we need to make, so that the police learn how to communicate rather than enforcing with brute force. I think that's where the disconnect is.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anthony. You're talking about the police learning or unlearning the way of training and, adopting the rule of law, the constitutionalism, and dropping brutality. Well, I don't know about you, Anthony, but this looks like a Cinderella story to us, especially our current state of affairs. Again, for your submission, we do appreciate. Now, this week has been rather different kind of a week. When we ask in whose hands are we safe, it's because there are different parameters, and understandably, most of them are touching on the security of this country. Now, first, it was the issue of Julia, who we learned that in custody, and to date, they're trying to piece up the circumstances that led to the death of Julia. And as it sits, actually, it is a very sorry state, because when things happen, often than not, they seem foreign to us. They are another news item. They're just another washe story, or rather story that makes you angry. What happens if you actually have a closer interaction with these people that we are talking about on these expenses? That was the situation I had the past 2 weeks. First, it was a 35-year-old young man who was shot 700 meters away from their home. And it appeared in news in some local dailies, only for one of our team members who is a diaspora member telling us, that was my son that was shot. He was going to fetch milk for the grandmother. Not anyway included in Mandamano. Now at KNH admitted. Now, we thought that was enough. Just when the issue of Julia happening and everyone was calling for Julia this, Julia that, the same group in the diaspora community, one of the members said, that is actually my granddaughter who is dead. And now we are protesting in Laikipia. So simply put, I'm not trying to belittle other incidences that have happened, but I'm just trying to tell us one thing. They are so real as they happen. Until now, we have to question, in whose hands are we safe? A 12-year-old was killed, if not murdered, in her home. She wasn't protesting. The mother cried to all of us, asking and begging that this is going to be the last cry of a mother. Now she's buried. Guess what? They don't know who pulled the trigger. Today, as we speak, there are several others that have died within police custody. And as we speak, we are talking about having a police that will be retrained and understand human rights and understand everything else. But the same police tells you, we will kill you because we've been given the authority to do so, and proceed to put you in a fridge. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the reality and the dark reality dealing with. Redemptor Live to give you an opportunity to speak to us, and thereafter we'll have Japonji followed by Buka. Thank you. Redemptor, the mic is yours.
Yes, thank you very much for the space. An exhausting week. We will never be safe as long as wicked people are the ones who get airtime to speak. And I say wicked because I saw a young man, Nana, he mingles with human rights defenders saying, instead of killing them, just go back to torture chambers. We will never be safe as long as people come here and talk about what is working. And some of us here tunakuanga nayo mingi is because we know what's broken in the system. We know things that we cannot even discuss in spaces. And then I see a 33-year-old who has been working in the government, has worked in this commission and that, and has gotten good. And then they say, no, give them time. And I keep asking, do we need more time for people, for all the red lines, Zipito? And so I don't want to talk about police brutality today because you had 110 people from Matu have been charged with terrorism. And me trying to break it down to, this is the town of my youth, and just doing fact find what happened to who, and hearing a government spokesperson saying, in the case of Matu, 1,000 people stormed the police station. While I'm hosting a space, somebody comes and tells us, in Nyeri, inmates were released. Then I remember there's a prison near Matu town called Kidimani Oyata. So you try to connect the dots, and I was in the LSK space and they were talking about ideology for you to overturn a government or to be a terrorist. You have ideology, you're doing it for religious reasons. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Robin Hood. You believe in justice, social justice by killing rich people. These people had none of that. So how insecure is this government regime that someone who sells maize ya kuchoma in a town is called a terrorist? So let me tell you what's broken in this system. And I want to Ella, to take you, and I'll be very brief. I want to take you where you went because this police brutality triggers me sometimes. So I'll talk about hospitals. I started working when I was 19. That's why I know a lot of things at this age. So my first posting was in the Ministry of Health. And just a fact on file. Kenyatta National Hospital was originally called the Native Civil Hospital. Native. Kumbuka tulikuwa tunaitwa natives, and it was constructed in 1901. Let that sink in. So that when we are asking how a patient is killing people. Now, because of how Kenyatta is, there's a lot of undocumented bad things. One, the suicides that are happening in Kenyatta, it's called the box because of the design. If you go to Kenyatta and you attempt to sit in the sitting areas in that empty space within the box, a good Samaritan will come and tell you, usikae hapo. Why? Because someone can fall on you. Someone can throw shit from their ward down there. People are washing their dishes, they throw them. So the fact we have a hospital, the biggest hospital, the referral hospital that was built in 1901, there's a problem. And then we have a system called SHA that ends up costing, for the system alone, 103 billion. We could actually have a referral hospital in every county. We could actually scrape the whole of Kenyatta and make it an orthopedic wing or maternity wing. This is how bad Kenya is. Those who come here and boast to us how systems are working. If we don't get new people to see how things are not working, we'll always be in spaces arguing about police brutality is caused because of Mubeberu. No, it's because we have someone who can actually take 103 billion for a system that could have cost 20 million. And Kenyatta is the way it is. So there are a lot of suicides that happen in Kenyatta. There were reports that women who are going to breastfeeding mothers have been sexually assaulted. And if you know Kenyatta design, the maternity ward was on the ground floor. The pediatrician ward is on the ground floor. Then newborn unit is on first floor. And newborn unit, I want to paint a picture. Newborn unit is where preterm babies in ICU, babies in incubators stay. So these women have to breastfeed every 2 hours, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and they're going up. So for us as a nation to talk about our health system works without even examining why was a man who was homeless, who Kenyatta announced was homeless in January, now admitted back because alikataliwa kwao? Alikataliwa kwao because he's a criminal. He could be a patient, but he could be a violent man. So I just want to say that I want to appeal to the people who keep telling us the systems are working. Just to tell you that we are not safe in your hands. We don't even want to blame the president anymore. We want to blame you because you're so caught up in your own little world. Your world works. And because your world works, you bombard us with how the government is working. If you believe it's working and it works for you, well, just plead you stop telling us how it works. Because it's frustrating. It's frustrating when you think about a hospital that was built in 1901, where the things that happen in Kenyatta, some of you know, some of you have patients there. It's a horror story. The reason there are no journalists doing stories in Kenyatta, it's a hard place to be. From the smells to the sights to the misery to the suffering to the stink of death to bodies being moved in the same, what is it called? Yesterday I was watching a crime series and I saw a hospital and I asked myself, when will Kenya be like this? When will our hospitals look this clean that you'll even want to go to hospital? So for me, I'll say we're not safe in the hands of the people who speak up and defend bad rule, bad governance, people who are anarchists and call tyrants, calling others anarchists. Will never be safe. As long as educated people come on TV stations and use a lot of English words and tell us, we have had mandamanos before, these are not mandamanos. Of course, this is different because you're sending goons. If Kenyans are saying people are released from prisons to infiltrate, you're telling me all the billions that have been allocated to our security, they did not know Matu had 1,000 people who had the potential of burning a police station? I feel sorry for the young men in Matu because some of them are pawn to a bigger game. They didn't even know what was happening. Walisikia, hey, twende. And the person who was doing the violence had been given instructions of what to do. I'm not saying there are no criminals in Matu, but I'm just saying kuna mchezo imechezewa our youth. And I feel so sad for people who defend these systems. As an older person, when you see people like Professor come into spaces, there are things they know that we don't know at their ages of how bad this system is. When people who've known these people in power for 20 years come and tell us these people are thieves, they are killers, you come and defend the killers, and then you unakashifu the youth. These youth are waambiliki, wazazi wetu waambiliki. So today I'm frustrated. Hata sina points. Nimetoka kutafuta msaada kwa watu wa Matu because let me tell you what's going to happen. And I'm saying this out loud. Any town that is a hotspot, the people from that town, the young people from that town are going to be terrorized. Because it's like a scenario, Mnani aliaibisha, we saw Isiolo. Isiolo was the first place where we saw it is drugs and youth were around. And as we speak in these spaces, these big civic organizations, well done for all the good work we do, but they never go back to Isiolo and find out in March last year or in whichever month, kuna watu walibu president na wakashikwa. So it's becoming a scenario where our youth have become noisemakers. That's not how I look at them. They're embarrassing the principal. And so prefect anaambiwa niandikie list yao noisemakers. And those noisemakers are ending up dead, tortured, sexually assaulted in cells, clobbered, given to hardcore criminals to deal with them. So my problem, Eli and Obeds and everyone on this panel list, is the people wanakutetea maovu ya kienea in this country. The money that has been used for SHA could give all of us extra medicine to keep in our shelves in the house. And that's a problem with this nation. We will never be safe when the people who know what is right keep quiet. And it's a few young people running helter-skelter in these towns trying to do the right thing. And so to all the people who are suffering, in fact, inafika mahali unaanza kusikia ni kama unachizi when you listen to people's argument. Like that young man who said it's better if we have torture chambers. Abuka, you think you've seen that conversation where he said he goes to Kombozi library and he knows about torture chambers. He has interacted with people who are tortured. So when I see people like those, then I know we are in trouble and I know we are not safe. The people we are giving voices, audiences to, the day I see Koech, the one who said kill them, the day I see Mon Citizen, I will never watch Citizen again. And those are the small things we can do. We are giving people power to, like gaslighters, and tell us, these youth are becoming unruly. There are criminals in this nation, many. The white collar criminals and looters should be shot on sight. That's my submission. Asante.
Thank you, Redemptor. I mean, if you didn't listen to what Redemptor said, I don't know how I can help you, because there's so much is touched on. And unfortunately, that is the reality we are in. Redemptor talk about the 103 billion for a system that is supposed to be helping Kenyans address the issue of hospitalization, UHC, among others. But also have to remind you that the Ministry of Health was very proud to parade a mother with a newborn baby, because SHA was able to settle her maternity bill in Kisumu. And just to show how SHA is performing, they called on Kenyans to register as SHA is real and working. And Kenyans are clapping, and the insurance that is the SHA wants us now to celebrate them and go into a praise and worship frenzy and say Mungu ni mwema, SHA atenda mema, and then we expect to have change. But if we say nothing more than that, you will see our friends from the other side of aisle. And actually, we need to choose a side. Honestly, we need and we must choose a side. Wanjiru, tangu badilishe picha hata uongeleshi watu wa picha za mzee. Obeds, wewe ubadilishe picha ndio tukusalimie. But thank you for making time. Great to see you, Wanjiru, female Kenyan, Ronyo, Western, Wood, Alego, among others who have joined us. We appreciate you being here. Aya, baby, umekuwa missing in act. I'm doing this because once upon a time, I used to be in a station whereby people walikuwa natuma salamu. Kaambia ukitaka kosana na Waluya wanyime salamu. So I notice all of you are Luyas, and that's why I'm saying hi. Redemptor, thank you for your submission. Let's now cross over to the next speaker, and that is Japwanji.
Thank you, Eli. Eli, salamu nimepokea. Eli, first of all, in whose hands are we safe? Eli, before I start, I just wanted to let you know that if there was a police, active or retired police, listening to this conversation, they would not believe you, They will look at the disconnect between what they know and what you're talking about. There's a big disconnect here. We are talking about symptoms, of a failed state. We are not looking at the actual problem, As someone who's been trained with the force, who has served, I can tell you, from the point of information, that what we are talking about here is just 1%. Okay, let's start from the recruitment. That is where the problem is. Forget even about the structure. Who are these people who get to be policemen in Kenya? You start from there, then you will have solved half of the problem. For instance, each politician, the president, all politicians and all these, even clergymen, they have slots in the police service or force. If you look at it keenly, you realize that during recruitment, Ella, if you go there and run and expect to be recruited, then I think you are in the bad business. You don't know what is happening in this country. Those guys have slots. But what do I mean? The slots are always sold out. By the time people go or report at the Kiganjo Training Police College, you find that the people who are with you, everyone came through someone, either through bribery, like tribalism, nepotism, they are all brought in. That's why if you find a honest ex-police officer, honest, or who is serving now, honest one, and if you can bring them, they will tell you, it's very difficult as a trainer of the police to even punish police when they're in training, because hao ni watoto wakubwa. Apparently, Eli, some police officers or recruits are always taken to Kiganjo as punishment, for being rude at home or such like. And if you look carefully, we people in this space, in your family, there's always that black cat. There's that kid, mtachanga, people will contribute to pay bribe to take that guy to Kiganjo. if you look at the minimal entry requirement, is D, and they are always 50% fake documents. I can tell you that. So what do we expect from those people who have been recruited? Eli, there are people who have that patriotism. They want to serve Kenyans. They want to go to police. They have that I don't know. They really, really want to serve this country well, but they never get that opportunity. There are a lot of young people who want to serve in the military. They will never get that opportunity. Now, even you would do an interview in the street, just anyone, if they want to go to the police or military, the first thing they'll ask you is how much do they want this time? People pay bribes as high as 600K, up to $1 million. I've seen that. And if you are inside there, then you will realize that most of the training is only paramilitary, and they are still using the colonial, system. And if you go there, like the first few days, they will tell you the work of the training is kutoa hiyo uraia yako, hiyo unaget. Police, they don't even look at you like you are their equals. Let me tell you the truth here. Police anakuona kama raia. Sasa, they will always use that term. You go to their mess or anything. When we see people who have never trained or who are never in police, they tell you, huyu ni raia. The first day of training, utakuwa gonga kichwa na unaambiwa, first they will remove that, that uraia. They want that. They want you to be like a force to reckon with. So that is the point of training, And they will also tell you, an insider will tell you that kama mtu ajakufa during training, hiyo training haijakuwa poa during that time. Unajua, the training is rough, So again, when we talk about the police, service, there is a lot more. There is a lot more that we just need a space for that, Eli. It's a lot more. I cannot even finish talking about it. But if you do your research and bring in people who actually can tell you more, then you will realize we are only talking about symptoms. Because you're talking about KNH and security. I think the security at KNH is outsourced. But I want you to ask you a very basic question. If you are admitted at KNH, then you have not finished or you have not paid the bill, do you think you can walk out free? That's how security is tight. But now tell me that someone can just walk in and kill people and walk out. Come on. Don't you think do you think this is by accident or design? So if you look at things from that point, then you will realize that we actually need to hear from the horse's mouth. And as long as they're not really ready to speak here, LA, I'm sorry, we will only be talking about what we, raia, tunajua on this side. But what are the police saying? What are the police really saying? Are they even allowed to talk about this? No. But can we have someone talk? There's a deserter. There are a lot of deserters. There's, talk to one and bring them in this space. Maybe we'll be shocked. Maybe we'll have this space for 5 or 6 hours. That's what I'm trying to say, Eli. We are handling this. And the police inside, only 1% are very good police. Maybe they went in through, once you pass the running, the test and all that, still someone will approach you and tell you, oh, Eli, okay, you passed the test, you have 32 teeth, all that, your physical, everything is good, medical. But you know what? How much can your dad afford so you can go for training from Monday? Na unapatiwa number, force number hapo, unajua admission number. That is what is happening. But we are not talking about this. And then there is tribalism in the force, Eli. Tribalism is there. When a new president comes in, watu wenye wanaguard State House na presidential escort unit wanabadilishwa wote, na wakitolewa, they still have that anger in them. They lose all that allowance. And then there is that police wanaitwa homeboys. There's a group of police wanaitwa homeboys, Eli. Ask anyone who is honest to you, your brother, watakwambia. I don't know why. Eli, you should know this thing. So that homeboys group, na killer group, they recruit from people who are not scared of black, people who can kill easily without a second thought. If you look at people from these how you call it, terror-stricken areas huko, wenye wamezoea kuwa watu, a kid as the like maybe 10 years old, 9 years old, amezoea kuwa watu wamebeba AK-47 for life. You are seeing AK-47 for the first time in Kiganjo. So this group, they are not ready to, they can kill easily, So what I'm trying to say is that, Eli, if you look at inside the killer squad that you people in quotes, mostly people from Western, and I've said this before, from Luo, most of them they'll not be there. Kwa sababu Luo, Luya, Kisii like this wameogopa blood and kuua. Lakini wakipata ule mtu mwenye anatoka huko sijui Kuresoi huko wenye wamezoea kuua watu wa ng'ombe, wanawekwa kwa hiyo kila squad. And also the most important thing here is that they believe they are protecting the home. Wanachunga mtu wao. Those people, they don't reason. Thank you, Ella. I wish I had more time. Thank you.
Interesting stuff there. Japonji, you talk about the recruitment process in the force and how conditioned to work with Raia and the police themselves, including the issue of tribe and how it plays their own chase card, rather in the police unit. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your weekend brief. And probably sooner than later, we'll start calling it a night. But we still have Booker Mall, who is joining us shortly. But before Booker speaks to us, recently there was this conversation that was happening online. And I thought maybe it was important for us to just borrow a few up sounds from that before we can contextualize our conversation and invite Booker to speak to it. We are still looking at police brutality and what it means, not just to you, but to myself and all the other that are listening as we look at in whose hands are we safe. Ladies and gentlemen, let's try and see if that will work this time round.
Tushaikuja tukapoa question. Where is that ipoa? Unajua mnaongea hapa online, mnadhani ati ground ni iko hapa online. Watu huku nje hata hakuna mtu anaamini hapo. If you came where I am, nilishashikwa nikaandikiwa touting. Mimi ni fundi wa rangi, nimeonyesha. This is another instance, nilishikwa Kale Junction. Nikauliza bro rada, kamba ziliisha, pingu ziliisha. So tulifungwa shule sisi, tukafunganishwa shule, tukaingizwa na nikaandikiwa touting. Na wakati tulienda police station tukasema tujiongelee hata tutoke na 1000, wakakataa. Wakasema ati hao hii ni koti imeitisha. Unasikia? Koti imeitisha hawa watu. Kwa hivyo sisi hatukuachiliwa na tulishikangwa wana Sunday. Monday kotini. Kawaida ya Makadara, ukifika Makadara unachaji yangu 3000 kama ni touting. Tuliambiwa nyinyi yani koti inataka hawa watu. And I'm speaking this because it happens. Police stations zinashikanga watu, zinawapeleka ndani for no reason. Mtu ametoka na kuenda kununua maziwa, ameenda kununua mkate hapo, ako na vest, anashikwa hivyo. Tulikuwa na mjamaa alikuwa amevaa alikuwa na slippers. Sasa huyo alikuwa na tout nini? Hiyo ipoa iko wapi? Wakati tulifikishwa Makadara, tulichajiwa everybody 5,000. What in happen in Thika, it is just a tactic to scare us. Wanataka kutushtua ndio tusijaribu kutetea haki zetu.
And that's where we bring back one new speaker who is Booker. And Booker, that is a gentleman who was speaking in a recent space hosted by The Standard. And I thought that needed us to pay some attention to, especially for those young people who are targeted, coming and living in what will look like, or rather will describe as low-income areas, ama wanasema mtaani. There is no rule of law. The police are above the law. They arrest you with no specific reason. And if you go to some specific courts, they just have a specific margin of money. They are asking, give it or you stay in. Booker, the rule of law, the justice system, and the police criminal enterprise. What's your take?
Thank you, Eli and Ms. Annie254 for hosting today's space. And I just wanted to make a few comments on what other speakers have, and then I will take a few more moments, like 2 or 3 minutes, to address the main issue. But the former comrade, I call him a former comrade, that Comrade Redemptor was talking about, is called Oye. And he's the person who appeared on TV to say that there has been discussions because he's a member of the ODM Youth League. And he's also there with the Youth League leader, which is Kasmuel, in the ODM. And he came out on national TV and said that the discussions in the ODM that they preferred people to be tortured and to come out of the torture chambers alive than being shot on the streets. and that they thought was a very good advice to the government, especially under the broad-based government. Of course, these were people who were infiltrators in the people's movement. They were never part of the movement. We identified a few months just after, and in fact, expelled him from the NCC. So they have just been exposing themselves. And that is what I wanted to highlight, that even in our spaces, there are such criminals that we need to deal with. It's not just in government. Oye is one of those criminals. The second one is that the point that I wanted to make was on the innocent deaths. You know, we've had so many people who have died that had nothing to do with protesting. There are so many people who have died that were just going around their normal business. But we must understand it that the crackdown in the street is not just about for protesters. The idea of relentless killing of innocent people, whether protesters or non-protesters, is what is referred to as state terror. It is meant to terrorize all of us, to ensure that you have no ability or even will to defend your basic rights in the streets. And also to try and set a war between protesters and non-protesters. Because the government will want to say that the reason why the innocent people were killed is not because they were protesting, but it's because of the protesters. If the protesters did not go to the street, there will be no excessive force of violence, and therefore people will be safe. That is the twisted logic that this government has to put in place to try and say that business people are losing money in the streets, so please stay home, or the business people under the supervision of armed guards, armed police officers, will actually enforce protection of their private property through armed gangs. And the government will ensure that those armed gangs actually brutalize innocent, peaceful protesters. So in the overall analysis, we should understand that the indiscriminate killing of the police is a tactic to bring chaos and to set some Kenyans against the protesters, and also to discourage people from appearing on the street. However, it has never worked in the history. It only ends up radicalizing the positions of even more moderate people in Kenya and isolating the current regime. And that is what has happened. In fact, if you see the president talking all the time, is a captured man. So he has nowhere to hide, only threatening here, bribing there, and using criminal gangs. So that's the second point I wanted to make. And then the third one is what some of you called blaming the police force for abductions and, abductions and illegal arrests. The police officers is a very small portion of this criminal enterprise. In fact, the commander of this criminal enterprise is President William Samoei Ruto. He sits in the National Security Committee. This is what happens. He actually instructs the spy master, the NIS, to profile people. This is done at the national security level. There is no police officer, junior police officer, that sits at the security committee. The internal security is there. The IG is there. Different heads of government forces of violence are there. And the president sits to get a weekly briefing. So the NIS, as the local spy, provides name. They says, Buka is the one doing this. Eli is the one doing this. Obed is the one doing this. These people are placed in surveillance, both physical and digital surveillance. In fact, you will realize that the amount of money that the government uses to carry out surveillance against innocent activists or revolutionaries or protesters vis-a-vis the amount of money that is used to actually pursue criminals in this country is really nothing to be proud about. So by the time it reaches a point where a decision has been made to abduct you or illegally arrest you, it basically means that you're an innocent person in this country that cannot be humiliated or tried through the normal judicial processes. It basically means that if they have been arresting us and taking us to court about, for example, protesting, or the other time it was, blocking highways. But the judges will just dismiss those cases or release the protesters for less than 500 shillings, or even order them to go and clean a police station. So what essentially happens is that when you are identified for abduction, it basically means that the government has identified you to kill you. Because if the government wanted to try you, then they will have just summoned Booker to go to the police station. They open up a charge sheet. They lock me in. If they arrest me on Friday, I will be bailed out, and the normal procedures take place. So the reason why the government of the day under President William Samoei Ruto has to then start the terror units within the police force, these are political cells that are used to exterminate people against the law, because the law in its sense cannot allow Ruto to kill people extrajudicially. So this is how, so to blame a junior police officer who was ordered to go and arrest, and the way the police happens, and then you say that the junior officer only ended up with a D minus, so he cannot reason whether to kill Booker or not, well, he has expressed orders to go and murder Booker. The buck stops with the political leaders, the buck stops with President William Samoei Ruto. The police officer is only the arm of the enemy that is hiding. Now, the police officers are promised to be protected. And indeed, they are being protected. Because even the whole idea of starting a judicial inquiry instead of a direct prosecution is to dilute the prosecutor's case. We have seen, for example, Baby Pendo. We had a thorough judicial inquiry. The police officer who murdered Baby Pendo is not in jail. In fact, he was allowed a safe exit. He's not within this country. When now the trial comes. What happens at the judicial inquiry is that the defense basically knows all the facts before the trial begins. So most of these people who have been taken through the judicial inquiry is actually a political protection for criminals to actually be able to escape justice. All these are architected by political leaders, not the police officers. So it is important to understand that as so long as we have a government of the day that is only geared towards protecting the privileged few, the big landlords, and finance capital, that means investors from outside and within, this government, we can conclude that it has been captured by narrow parochial interest of a few people. So it cannot persuade the majority of the Kenyan population to support it. So it has to coerce them. It has to violate their rights because it has lost the public trust that enables each government to execute its roles peacefully. They cannot provide jobs for the people. So if I can kill a few people not to go to the streets, it's fine. I cannot provide medical care. So if I can do propaganda about SHA and make sure that I punish the people who are actually activists for healthcare, it is okay. I can also make sure that I charge for higher education and make sure that the poor people cannot access higher education. And when the poor people come to the street, I can kill a few of them to go home. So it is a government that is determined to only raise resources, money, to meet their debt obligation for IMF and World Bank, because that will be a big humiliation for them in the international stage. And secondly, they will not qualify for more Eurobonds that they need to steal in order to run the next political campaigns. And then finally, the government of the day also will want to do everything within its means to stay in power through hook and crook. This is important for us to acknowledge. And sometimes I hear people say that the state is a neutral arbiter, that the Kenyan state is a neutral state, that actually it's funny because every day we see how the state manages how to access justice. The rich people will be able to access more protection from the police. They are able to get more of their legislation passed through parliament. They are able to access the executive power. And in terms of judicial authority, the people with the means can access justice and they can be criminals and stay out of jail. So the state is not a neutral arbiter. The state can act in the interest of the few like we have, but for us to be on the safe hands, we must take the state power and will it in the interest of the majority. This is when we will be safe. So pleading with the government, I have said routinely that President William Samoei Ruto will not stop killing us, because killing means he has to survive in power. He will not stop stealing. He will not stop doing anything unless his life or the life of his government is under threat, like the last year when we were on the streets demanding for rescinding of the finance bill. Then they will articulate certain reforms. So in essence, we must understand the Kenyan state as an organized weapon of violence to protect the interest of one group of the people against the majority. So the Kenya army can be unleashed. The police can be unleashed. The general service unit can be unleashed. And whoever is abducting the people, I have seen that there is a multiple approach in terms of who is abducting the people. In fact, after the NIS particularly carry out, profiling, and it could be either you are ideological like me, so the basically means that the state cannot buy you, or in essence, there is no legal way in which the state can tame you because everything you're doing is within the law. But essentially, once this NIS maps out the people that needs to be dealt by the state, there can be a unit within NIS to carry out their dirty activities, or they bring the second arm of government, which is the DCI. The DCI, although has prosecuting power, but we also know that there are criminal entities that have been started before. In fact, President William Samoei Ruto talked about the SSU when he was getting into parliament, when he was getting into the State House. Unfortunately, he said he had disbanded it. But unfortunately, he only recalibrated it to even be more lethal. So the DCI in itself have been humiliated in the last protest, in the sense that I have, for example, had 8 cases that the DCI could not pass beyond prosecution. So the essence is that the DCI was getting quite tired, in the essence that they are placing cases before the court. Those cases cannot meet any legal threshold. So what does the government do? The government has brought in the anti-terrorist police. And it's only when you are charged with terrorism that the custodial orders of more than 21 days to 30 days applies. So it basically means that another tactic that the state want to scare people from holding it accountable is to make sure that even when you are arrested and you are not guilty, the state is determined to use prosecution and some compromised judicial officers to ensure that they lock you in for a few days. They punish you unheard. This is what is happening for our comrades in Matu Redemptor. This is what is happening because for the first time, even innocent protesters are being detained in Kamiti Maximum Prison from Kawa West. For the first time, we have Machakos cases issuing custodial orders to detain comrades for 7 to 14 days. So, Eli, what I just wanted to bring out in conclusion, because I've seen your hand is up, is that the only way to be safe in this country is for the Kenyan people to carry out their revolution to its conclusion. No amount of pleading with the state will help you. Just join an organization. For us, you're building the party and advance the Kenyan revolution to its logical conclusion. Thank you, comrade.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Buka. Quite interesting perspective of what is happening, including how the police, the state functions in order to silence those who decide to raise their voice against bad governance. And well, time is well spent, 8 minutes in order for us to call it a night. But as we do that, I just wanted to just add a little bit of garnish to what we've discussed this evening. And this is, again, based on a conversation by IPOA recently when they were talking about what exactly makes them an impossible dog to bite. I think that's what I heard from what they said. Let's try and listen in.
It's a challenge we often face in our investigation, and it's not and it's something even the courts themselves have identified, and it's called cover-up, whereby those who commit certain acts try to cover up in terms of evidence. Now, in those circumstances, and that's where sometimes our investigations take longer than you can hear Wanjira sometimes complaining about the length of time our investigations take. Because sometimes you get instances where there's concealing of evidence and attempts at cover-up. And it behooves us, we are required by law, if we are making recommendations and somebody is going to be prosecuted, we still have to prove that case beyond reasonable doubt for somebody to be convicted. And therefore, the IPOA as an investigative agency, even with regard to cover-up, must still go that extra mile and find that evidence, even where there is cover-up. And there are many cases where we've been able to do so, and persons have been convicted even after engaging in concealing of evidence and cover-up.
Well, I just thought maybe we should share that in order to understand also the dynamics that we have to face in order to achieve justice, especially for victims of political and what I'll say, the state violence. That said, I'm also interested in our last piece of this conversation, which will not take so long because Obed is warning me against time, and Obed, I will try my best in order to make sure we stay within the limits. Recently, CS Murkomen had to speak about the cannibalizing that is happening. And you all know too well that Kenya opens its borders to African travelers, especially if you have an African passport, save for, I believe it's Somalia and another one country there, which to some extent, and Libya.
Somalia.
Thank you. And that was something that we actually had a conversation about recently, which some of us still feel maybe not too fast. We should be able to consider other factors that come with those possibilities. But here's what Murkomen had to say about that issue. Let me just try and get this working in a few, if you allow me. Okay, I think
we have been doing and multi-agency kind of operation to make sure that we round up all the aliens who are operating in our country. But again, this is one area that is a trafficking of persons. Just recently, over 101 Eritreans were caught in this county, and finally they were taken to Kakuma for proper processing. So we have human trafficking here, but we have also presence of aliens. That really speaks to the question of the problem of cannibalism that happened in this place. Again, it is not just assuring the families that were affected justice. It's beyond that. This is an issue that we must give confidence and assurance to the people of Kenya that it's going to be dealt to the very bottom of it, because then people will live in fear. So it's justice for those who have lost their loved ones, but we must do beyond that. We must restore order, restore confidence in the security sector within this county, that people can live not in fear, knowing that when their children go to work, go to school, go to sports, go everywhere, they are safe. Not just their children, but also adults that can be vulnerable to these acts of cannibalism.
So, Roberts, I'm happy you are here because at least we can confirm you are still alive. But there are Kenyans who cannot stay in their home because somebody is shooting and there is a risasi itampata kama na watch TV. There's another one who is on the street doing their own business, either apigwe ngeta na goons ama askari wa mtambarize, as they say. Then there is another Kenyan who, for no particular reason, they will be abducted, if not disappeared. The next time you hear about them, they are either in a pool or you'll hear that they were mishandled or manhandled in a police station, sodomized, raped, among other issues that are ill in our perspective. Redemptor, I'd like to pick your mind very quickly on that clip I just played about Murkomen assuring Kenyans that they can be able to trust again that their security is ensured, especially with the cannibalism. Redemptor, what do you make of this whole hula baloo surrounding the conversation about cannibalism?
There's a very controversial subject called human trafficking, sex trafficking, and now you're adding a different one. Kuna watu wanakula wengine. Every time these crimes come about, the connections, the people connected to those crimes are very deep. When you see things happening in Pokot, watu mwili imepatikana, you have to remember the case I was doing a few weeks ago that I didn't disclose the cause of death. So the young man had plunged into a mining hole, well, they call them well. So there's more to security matters that I don't want to talk about. Buka amesema tutawekwa kwa Security Council meeting on Monday. There's a lot of cover up. There are a lot of things that happen in this country. You only hear, and even journalists seem to have a code of silence around them. They will never talk about it. The one is mining, illegal mining that happens. It is only kidogo kidogo utaona kastori kametoka because hii Kenya iko na wenyewe. So that these people who can read my SMSs nikiwa kwa nyumba do not know what is going on there. Someone amekuwa akikula watu until we find bodies, skeletal remains of people. I'm not convinced. Namalizia.
All right. Thank you, Redemptor. You have made your point, and I believe most of us have also listened to the conversation. We do hope that we're able to cover much of it because your week in brief, it's actually a brief conversation of everything and anything that happened in between. Looked at the economic aspect, looked at the political situation, also the social aspect of what we're discussing. And generally, our main focus was the issue of the security, of course, the issue of Kenyatta National Hospital taking a center stage in our talk tonight, including and not limited to the police brutality. Even as we conclude towards the end, the issue that is happening in West Pokot, kuna tashwishi mahali. But then again, who are we, Roberts?
I don't have much to say, Eli, especially around what this government is and what is going on. It's clearly true that we chose the incompetent to lead and they are proving it. They're constantly lying. And it's about who's making the most money from what deal at the expense of people. And I say this looking at SHA and SHIF, whatever you call it. You're looking at the education system. You're looking at the security situation. Remember when Kindiki came into office the first time, when he was CS for Interior, he said he had dealt with banditry in the north. And that will be a thing of the past. But I think Ogola passed away being in that region, trying to quell that problem. So I sit here and I think for me, Eli, generally, you have to talk about a lot of things. This government has just lost it completely. And you can see from their actions, their words, and the tone in which they're addressing people, they are cornered. They don't know what to say. Listening to Koech, listening to a president giving instructions that people should be shot in the leg and you begin to question, one, do they have a sense of situational awareness? Do they have a sense of what is right and what is not, you begin to wonder who speaks to the other, who listens to the other. Everybody is out to please the president. He saw somebody saying, oh, it's Potosha to Taiba. You see Mudavadi today getting angry, oh, you guys are ruining it for Ruto. The truth is, this is a system that's messed up. And we can clearly tell that the pressure is increasing. I don't know, you can use increasing, depending on how you choose it. But the truth is, there's a bit of pressure on the part of government. And beautifully, because they called us online wankers. But what is beautiful is these people are pushing the narrative. Government agenda. Remember, Itumbi used to fire and do things around online and the control of the online ecosystem. That has been turned on its head and it doesn't have control anymore. So government's having a difficult time and they're playing catch up, which is beautiful because then they're struggling. So what we can happily say is this must go on. They listen to what we are doing and what we are saying. For those who will go to the street, go to the street. For us who are doing what we are doing here, we will do it. For those who are changing policy, please do it. The whole idea is let everybody's hand be on deck. Let us make the change we want to see and live the dream we want to see. Let nobody tell you it's impossible. Let us all attack from different angles and make sure that the enemy is cornered. And as it is sounding and as it looks, the space is becoming smaller and smaller. We have to keep doing this. We will always reform the police. But I keep saying, Eli, we probably need to look at how we can petition Parliament to look at the Public Order Act. That's because that's what the police are drawing their arrogance from. They have the arbitrary right from that order to do what they do and affecting, whatever decisions they make in terms of managing crowds. Remember, the bill for Geoffrey Ruku fell on that basis. And I hope we can push Parliament to have a bill on legalized assembly that is properly in alignment with the current constitution. If we do that, we begin on a very good place because then this government has no basis. But as it is, progressively, I believe Kenyans are doing an excellent job. We just need to stay focused. Kenyans, now that IEBC is available, let us ensure that we register en masse and vote en masse. That's the only way, because that's the most legal way to get rid of these people. And I hope we can vote with our heads, not with our hearts, because the hearts can lie and get it wrong. Na usifikirie kuongea lugha yako ndio inafanya ufike mahali. Vote for people who have your interest and have the interest of this country at heart. I've said a lot, and I think that's what I can say as a conclusion. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Obedza. I reversed some roles here, but I'd like to get quick remarks from Buka and Marabu, but we'll start with you, Marabu, as we close. Marabu, a lot has happened, a lot has been discussed. Any hope or future proposals for us? I guess Marabu is also on the Zoom or airplane mode. He's flying high. Buka, any final thoughts?
Maybe my final thought is that let's not forget our comrades in jail. Let's get some time in the weekend to visit the industrial area remand prison, to visit the Committee Maximum Prison, to visit the Langata prison, where majority of our comrades are still, being held illegally by the police, with supported of the judiciary. So let's visit them. Let's ensure that at least they have got legal representation. They have food, they have soap, and also some of them who comes from, very disadvantaged family. Their families have, I can go to industrial area and see our comrades, but sometimes a wife or a brother can arrive there and is not familiar with the processes and end up just being harassed and sent home. So that is my plea. The other exit comment is that I happened to visit several spaces this week, mainly the public, the bunges The one at Jivanji, the one is Jacaranda. And what I realized that all these criminals have sent their people there to lobby for them. So you'll find somebody saying, I support Ruto, I support Raila and the broad-based government, I support Matiang'i, So we should also ensure that we go to those spaces. And other than what we are doing on X, we also need to articulate alternative debates around those spaces. And finally, also, just know that the President William Samoei Ruto is planning to win any election, whether it is held today or in 2027, by balkanizing rural areas. 70% of our votes are in the rural areas. And the best thing we can do is to make sure that we defeat the current tribal mobilization that is taking place through the local radio stations and TV stations to balkanize the rural population tribally to make sure that this regime can survive or win illegitimately in the next election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is Buka. And yeah, we have to be on the ground. Redempte, I saw your hand was up.
Yeah, I didn't make my closing remark. You wanted me to talk about the cannibals in Pokot. That story is really giving me the creeps. Like something, I want to make a conclusion on the space today, or in whose hands are we safe? I want to speak as a parent because tuliambiwa tunaogopa watoto wetu. I don't know kama ni kuogopa ama ni kuwajua vizuri. When you lock heads with a Gen Z and they are right, there's nothing you can, if they are right, they can come down if they are wrong. But when they are right and you try to lock heads with them and say, I am the parent, I am always right, it's a battle you will never win. And an example is the president himself has a daughter who has now said, I must find that conversation. She's the one who came up with the dialogue. Kwa hivyo baba, the enigma, stole from her. So she's actually now speaking truth to power. You, Raila, how dare you steal my idea? So the other time, there was a funeral of a very senior general. He stood in front of all of us and said, huyu hata simuelewi, nilimwacha nyumbani amekuja aje hapa. And she insisted she wants to give, to pay tribute and eulogize a man she only met for 30 minutes. So you spoil yours. You let them get away with it. You give them money to buy matatus. They drive on the wrong side of the road. This is to tell everyone, even the investigating officers who are hounding young people in villages and finding who did arson and call them a terrorist, is that you're picking on the wrong people, because that maize seller from Matu does not have influence. He acted alone. He was probably carried away by the wind of destruction that happened there. The people who don't talk, the people who are not even on TikTok, they are the majority. So you're going to destroy the lives of 100 people, put them in jail, have them assaulted in those jails. That is just another mark of your evil acts. And I keep saying, it's a spiritual thing. So why do we fear our children if it is fear in quotes? It's because they never, ever, ever forgive when you do something that is unjust. They never forgive you. They actually tell you, we are not like you are being gaslit, toxic positivity. They have a terminology for, they never ever forget. And so they've been keeping notes of everything you've said, everything you're doing. You buy a more share, you buy this one here. And the last thing, because I know they listen to us, and I always say, msinikujie mimi ni spiritual. Mimi niko hapa kama a seer, an African seer. The last thing I would say, Eli, I always say, it's not what you say, it is how you say it. You're the president of the country, a great nation with 50 million. Why are you angry all the time? Do we need to, the pastors who come to you, do they help? Do they not help you to realize your tone alone is why the Constitution says your term should only be one? So why are you triggered by the word one term when the Constitution stipulates you will be a president for a period of 5 years and you can come for a re-election? And it's not tafadhali. To him, he's saying, I am the only person with a plan for you. So when people say one term, initially I used to dharau it and I'm like, imetoka wapi? But I think now constitutionally, we must promote the word one term as part of our constitution. So Mr. Rais, si lazima ukue two-term. The way you're talking with your asira, our young people will never forgive you for the deaths that have happened. And for those 10 from Atu, now there are 100 more. That's what you should learn. I don't know why they're so tone deaf that these strategies they're using. You've shown the young people everything you can do. What else can't you do? Mutilate their body, arrest them, kill them in a cell, throw them in a dam, cut off their parts like the two convicts from somewhere was in Gishu, whatever. What else can you do? You've done everything. Even for us as parents, unakuja kutusomea. What pain haven't we endured? The fear of, will my child be killed? So, ni kama umetufikisha unbogable. Asanteni.
All right. Thank you very much, Redemptor. Again, we appreciate your submission and looking forward to also engaging you on this coming Sunday. Redemptor, I keep referring to your name because I have struggled a lot this week, specifically because of all the senseless deaths that have happened. And I do believe, from where I sit, that we cannot just make these conversations about death and police brutality and mourning mothers another hashtag. We need to be able to forge ahead. And to the some extent, it is causing people to, some of people that are dying are actually young people who decide to even die by suicide. And it's an alarming rate, we have to admit. This week, I think 3 or 4 people I know, if not dying because of police brutality, there's one who, as of now, it's ruled out as suicide. But then again, there's so much that happens, you might never know the reality until the truth comes out. But then how do you expect the truth from a government chemist who knows very well they'll be protecting the interest of the state, and yet they want to perform that autopsy? Mimi sijui, but we can never give up, do we? Our land floods with blood. The stench of death and the tentacles of evil has engulfed our nation. Repent, O ye men full of iniquities. The wrath of the Lord will visit your house, and you shall know no peace. May all the unnecessary graves be avenged in the fullness of time. This weekend on Sunday Schooling, we'll be discussing the unnecessary graves. Hoping to see you there. And as we conclude, I believe we lost Marabu, but that does not mean we lost him in the next or upcoming conversation. Great to see a lot of faces that had been lost for some time, such as Nyarbama. Thank you for being here, Rabia. Wise One Tamasha. It's Tamasha or Tamisia. Yes, Tamasha, thank you. And always great to have you here. Jeroge and among other speakers. Cannot afford not to say thank you to you, Buka, Marabu, Redemptor, and I believe other speakers, including Stella, who were earlier on the space. We can't wait to engage you in the upcoming conversation. And in case you are somewhere in Europe and you love to engage with other Kenyans, there is a party park that is happening in Rotterdam, and probably you can just make your way there. We might cross our paths and have to discuss something about Kenyan as we even enjoy our culture and who we are. It is summertime, and about summer, it's always about enjoying family, friends, and of course, the gift of life. See you on Sunday during the Sunday Schooling, and right here on Mizani 254, where the scales of balance are restored and meaningful conversations thrive. And as we also make our way out, you can always follow the Lovers launch that is happening right now on Court FM. That is kotfm.co.ke all the way to midnight. And thereafter, we pick it up on Saturday as I bring you the Banjuga Midnight Cruise all the way from 8 p.m. to midnight. Till then, my name remains and has always been Likiani Eli on behalf of Mizani 254 Bezoriku and all the speakers. Have yourselves a great weekend.
ya betrayal hapo na nini. Saa hizi Mount Kenya are feeling betrayed. Why? There is no tribe hapo. Let's be honest. So sijui watu wanaonea tribe. There is no tribe hapo. They feel betrayed because as you vote in the president, you expect expectations. You expect some goodies from the government. You understand that? So they were expecting the president to do this. Mau roads, nini, all those. But you come from Central or Mountain, there is a proverb that they say, you don't kill the elephant with the tusk. I mean, you don't bury the elephant with the tusk. Hiyo tusk unatoa uuze, ndio nini uzi. So Ruto to Mount Kenya now is like that elephant. Unaget, imesha kufa. But they cannot just bury the elephant. Lazima hiyo tusk wauze. So kuna those developments afanye tu. Unaget, haina shida. But deep down, those people hate betrayal and they will vote based on betrayal. That one I can tell you. And they know also Raila is a betrayer for siding with someone who betrayed them. The enemy of your enemy is my enemy. I don't know. So I wanted to get that clear there, up to that point. People in Western, sunaona kina Kalalwe wameanza kuruka. Boni Kalalwe is saying that, listen, we had some shares. It's not being given to us. It's going to Nyanza. So again, what's that? Exactly. Betrayal. So now, you tell me how people vote in Kenya. Tribalism hapo imetokea wapi? You see, so we are getting it wrong. Now politicians come to you and tell you, no, this guy is from my tribe. No, it's the resources. So as long as the president still has that power to influence resource, anaezaenda Japan the other day, apatiwe hizo billion ametumia wapi? And the other thing also as I learned is, there's that guy called Morara Kibasa. There's something unique I want you to learn about him. Don't fry or don't kill the message. The message, okay, he's not integrity that we cannot, he's out. But whatever Morara Kibasa did should be put, we should use it. These are facts which can be put in the law, in the court of law. What happened? Why am I saying this? Because